Very good evening to everybody and welcome to this next in our Music Revival live stream series. This is Christopher Duigan coming to you from my home in KwaZulu-Natal on our next live stream program. I hope you can join us for the next hour. Again, it's been quite a break. It's been over 2 weeks, so this pattern of 2 live streams a week really has fallen away, and I'm having to remind myself really what it's like to keep up with these live streams, even once every 2 weeks, it seems. It's quite a forgetful thing. It's getting back into the program. Of course, someone who hasn't forgotten at all. Right on cue is little Lucy. Here's little Lucy into the camera. Hello, little Lucy. Lucy. Hello, how's little Lucy today? Lucy Poosey. Yes. And Lucy's due for a haircut. Yes, you can see. How can you put me on the live stream? The live stream video production with everyone to see, and I haven't had a haircut. I'm looking very unkempt. I'm sorry, Lucy, right. It wasn't what they taught at Switzerland Finishing School, that little girls should not go out in public without a proper manicure and maintenance. Yes, Lucy, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I'll take you on Monday, I promise. Promise, Lucy. Okay. And so this evening's live stream, here we go with another program. This evening's selection of music sponsored by our very generous sponsor, Terry Lynn Harris. Terry Lynn, thank you again for a program that you had requested. This is music by Beethoven, the Pathétique Sonata, as well as Schubert's Impromptu, and particularly the first of the four Impromptus, Opus 90. So I'm really hoping that everyone's going to enjoy this program. It's a very heartfelt, very generous program. It's very evocative, there's wonderful moods, there's beautiful melodies, there's a popular idiom throughout the program, I think, that has got some really great appeal. And in the middle of this sandwich of Beethoven and Schubert, I'm going to play a wonderful piece by Franz, Liszt. I'm going to change camera. Johan's helping us on the operations. Thanks, Johan, for being here this evening. And so Liszt is going to form a little bit of a filling in the sandwich of Beethoven and Schubert. And of course, I'm going to start with the music of Ludwig van Beethoven. This is the Sonata Pathétique. Now, what's so interesting about these pieces, the 32 Beethoven sonatas that he wrote, throughout from the early part to the latest part of Beethoven's life, he wrote them at various points, was inspired to write these pieces. And there are many of them that have popular titles that help us identify. I mean, 32 sonatas, they all have opus numbers and keys, but to talk about the piano sonata number 21 in C major, opus 53, is a bit of a technical mouthful. But to talk about the same piece of music, which is known as the Waldstein, of course, is so much easier. We'll say, oh, well, I've heard Beethoven's Waldstein, or even the Waldstein, and everyone knows exactly what you're talking about. Of course, these titles are not Beethoven's titles. They're really, the Moonlight, etc., are titles that were, some of them received from various critics subsequent to Beethoven's death. People have attached them for various reasons. But in this case, the Sonata Pathétique, it was something that Beethoven very clearly wrote in his manuscript score. And in the first editions, it says Grand Sonata Pathétique. Pathos is the word that he was looking for. And in this, Beethoven then is saying to us that this is something unique. It's something that he has never done before, and probably something that the composers of the day had never done before. That he was writing a piece of music that was imbued and laden with great feeling, pathos. There's a sense of great drama. And this was an element in the music that was so astounding for Beethoven's audiences of the time. Because while generally in Vienna, Beethoven was a young man at this time, obviously this is not the Beethoven who's in his last years, who's excluded from the world through his deafness. This is the Beethoven who's performing as a young man in his early 20s. He's taking Vienna by storm, coming from Bonn, where he was well known for his very brilliant piano playing, but also the intensity of which he attacked the piano, his great imagination, the freedom of expression, and the great enthusiasm with which he performed, not only vigorously, but also the very heartfelt and tender moments. And this was something which was very new and astounding for audiences of the time. So this idea of pathos, of really imbuing, as I say, the music with great feeling, was a very new idea, and that Beethoven is saying in this piece, this is something new, this is something radically different that I am doing, and probably that before anyone else has done it. And of course, this, as I say, is the early Beethoven. He's probably about 23 or 22 at the time that he writes this music. And it's very fresh. I've tried to approach that in the interpretation, not of the great master in his last years, but of the exuberant brilliant young master who's still living in a very classical, balanced and refined world. So the first movement really inhabits two very contrasted worlds. There are these wildly contrasting sections between very, very slow, very expressive moments which keep coming back, and then the music bursts forward and darts up and down the keyboard with these great explosive gestures, racing up the keyboard in very hard, quite intense manner with great crescendos, these long lines that build in intensity before the static mood returns once again and again. The second movement is a very heartfelt anthem, very well-known melody that I know many people are fond of. The second movement, the Adagio. And then the third movement, a Rondo, which really harks back to, again, to the very typical style of the time, that the last movement of a sonata is just really a pleasing melody, a pleasing idea, which is repeated again and again and again. And so this is, as I say, is early Beethoven. It's an early composition where he's still fitting in with the classical idiom of the time. And I keep talking about the later compositions that Beethoven wrote in later years, like the Waldstein, the Moonlight, the Appassionata, where he tries to find a last movement or a way of including music in the last movement that is a final culmination in terms of the drama and the capacity of the entire composition, because this piece still represents the rather unusual balance that Beethoven wasn't fond of, that the last movement is just a lighter aside after all the drama of the first movement. Beethoven was constantly trying to seek how everything in the music could have greater value and greater meaning. So he wanted the final culmination of the last movement to be the crowning glory of the music. And that's not something that you really hear in this piece. So this is the three movements of the Sonata Opus 13 in C minor, the Pathétique by Ludwig van Beethoven. Don't forget my lapel. Okay, Luce, you get to behave. did say the lightness, hardly a light moment, hardly a light ending there, with the last movement of the Sonata Pathétique by Ludwig van Beethoven. Certainly all the drama that we associate with Beethoven even might be in even a youthful or more robust, or might maybe a little bit less dramatic than we might associate with him in his later works. So that was the three movements of the Pathétique. Really beautiful slow movement, beautiful second movement. Yes, Lucy even enjoyed that, and a really wonderful piece of music. Johan, which camera would you like me to talk to? This one. Okay, we're going to stay there. I've still got a bit of a cold. Now, this evening you will see, I meant to mention in the beginning, apart from this evening's stream being sponsored generously by one of our most ardent and most generous supporters, Terry Lynn Harris, who's in Pretoria. Thank you, Terry Lynn, again for your support for this evening's performance. But you will also see the orchids, the amazing, I mean, when one orchid flowers, then all of them, there must be 17 plants at the moment, all with the most incredible blooms of peaches and ambers and bright yellows and pinks and various types of bidiums, and it's really quite astounding. I mean, I think the music studio is looking a little bit like a florist shop or an orchid house at the moment, and there's still more to come from the greenhouse. There's still the rest of the orchids are in the greenhouse, and as they flower, they're allowed into the house. And so if you are hoping to visit or planning to visit one of my concerts at my home in the next couple of weeks, the next series of concerts will be at the end of August. Please do keep track of my website. Of course, all the orchids will be available to view. And the other thing which has been keeping me very busy in the last 2 weeks has been somewhat of a maintenance, but also somewhat of a reworking of the garden, of Barry's garden at our home. And this, very pleased to announce that this should be on Open Gardens in November if all goes correctly, and it's looking quite spectacular. It's starting to look quite fresh. It's been cut back and there are many new ideas taking place, and it's a matter of re-envisaging and reworking Barry's garden. So I'm hoping that I'm pretty sure it's going to look pretty spectacular, and that will be available for everyone to view in the coming months. Hey, Luce and Frida are enjoying wandering around the garden with me. I've taken a whole new interest in to see what's going on. So I'm going to go on to 2 pieces of music, or 5 pieces of music, in fact, that I'm going to play together. The first of which is a sandwich in between these moments of Beethoven and Schubert, and this by Franz Liszt. Now, Johan is going to bring up an image, an artwork by the artist Raphael, called Il Sposalizio, the betrothal of the Virgin Mary, Joseph to Virgin Mary. And this is a painting that greatly inspired Liszt in his moments, his religious convictions and his obsession with the religious idea. And during his days with the Comtesse Marie d'Argoul, I played the Dante Sonata recently, I think in the last Saturday stream, from the same volume of Italy, the Years of Pilgrimage. The Italian volume, Liszt is inspired by literature and art of Italian nature. And in this particular piece, the opening number, he's inspired by this painting by the artist Raphael. And it's a very beautifully radiant piece of music, and I think something about the reverence that Liszt experiences the subject matter, but also finds himself delving deeper and deeper into this music, is really quite a hauntingly beautiful piece of music. So this is Sposalizio from the Years of Pilgrimage by Franz Liszt. And straight after that, I will then move into the 4 Impromptus by Franz Schubert, the first set of Impromptus. Schubert composed another set later in his life. Schubert wasn't the first composer to use the idea of impromptu. It was another composer by the name of Jan Duigan, I believe, who first of all used this concept of a piece of music impromptu that is spontaneous and on the manner of, on a whim. And it really brings into the concept of 19th century music, the aesthetic that, or the idea that music is not only balanced, classical and considered and logical, which was very much the idea of the composers of Mozart and Beethoven, or Mozart, early Beethoven and Haydn, but in the composers of Schubert, later Liszt and Chopin, that music could really express something beyond this idea of logic, conscious thoughts. It might produce something a little bit fantastical and something which is coming from another world, whether it's deep within or far away. And the idea that music could just pass through, the music can pass through a performer. As a performer, as a classical pianist, sometimes I do feel like that we are interpreters of music from another world. We are a sort of mirror, a glass which resounds, which this music sounds through us. And I think these pieces are very special in that sense because they have something very improvisational about them. They are highly organized and highly structured, but each of them is quite different with a very succinct and very, very beautiful idea. They're some of the most beautiful music ever composed, beautiful melodies. And in particularly the first one, which has a sort of atmosphere of a funeral march with various variations around it. It has such great depth, but then resolves into these moments of great beauty and great poignancy. It's really quite extraordinary. And the third of the fourth impromptus, of course, is very, very well known. It's a beautiful hymn-like melody. The fourth, also one of my favorites, with this beautiful cascading sound. A piece of music that has a certain lightness to it, but underneath there's a lurking depth and darkness, which so much of Schubert's music has. So first of all, Sposalizio by Liszt, followed by the Impromptus, Opus 90 by Franz Schubert. for Impromptus, Opus 90 or D899, the D referring to the catalogue number of Mr. Deutsch, catalogued all Schubert's works from 1 to 900 and something, the last compositions. Those four really magnificent, incredibly beautiful music. Thank you for our sponsor this evening, Terry Lynn Harris, who supported this evening's program, requesting Schubert Impromptus as well as the Beethoven Pathétique Sonata. If you would like to sponsor or request a program, the details are available at our website, musicrevival.co.za. Thank you to Johan for the technical support this evening. I'm sure it all went swimmingly. Johan's laughing at me. Thank you. Here comes Lucy again. Lucy's going to make a last little appearance. Thanks, Lucy, for always being part of the show. Everyone loves Lucy. And Lucy, dare one ask, what did little Lucy do today? Nothing, just nothing, nothing at all. Yeah, that's not true. We went for a walk in the garden and we looked at all sorts, and we barked at the neighbours. Yes, we like barking at the neighbours. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. I will be back on Wednesday, so in just a few days' time, I'll be back this coming Wednesday with our World Cafe Piano Hour selection and some very exciting, wonderful music. I hope you're going to enjoy that. And of course, please do stay in touch with me on my website where you can join my mailing list. You can also find details to join my WhatsApp group, because within this month, these live streams are going to start being only available behind the gated platforms. And unless you are a subscriber, having donated a monthly amount of between 350 and 500 Rand a month, you will not have access any longer to these streams. Unfortunately, that is the way it is going ahead. Lucy's fees are increasing. Lucy's demanding quite a substantial appearance fee, aren't you? Yes, someone's going to look after little pudding Lucy. Look at that little pudding there. So please do keep track of my website. Join my mailing list. A new email will be going out this week. Lovely to, well, I didn't see you. Lovely to be part of this again. Lovely to be able to play for you in a wonderful program of music tonight. And hoping very much that we'll see you again on Wednesday. Look after yourself. Stay well, keep well, and see you on Wednesday. And in 2 weeks' time again for another in-concert session.